Welcome to the Research Works podcast, brought to you in association with the Healthy Strides Foundation. Your hosts are Dr. Dana Poole
and Dr. Ashley Thornton, and we're here at the AusACPDM conference in Cairns, Australia, to interview world-leading researchers, clinicians, and people with lived experience
to support your practice in being more evidence-based.
Carrying on with our AusACPDM conference series, we are joined now by Caitlyn Keron. Welcome,
Hello.
Caitlyn. First time on the pod.
Yes.
Feeling excited?
Very excited.
Good.
That's the right emotion to feel.
Yes.
At a conference, especially when AusACPDM is actually quite a mouthful. You did really well there.
Thank you. I always get really nervous when I have to say it. And I always spend the rest of my time thinking I've said it wrong.
You did a very good job. Yeah. We know where we're at.
Thank you. So, Caitlyn, you are an occupational therapist at the Healthy Strides Foundation, and we are really excited. Well, I am incredibly excited to talk to you today about your paper, Playground Accessibility, co-designing a mobile application to improve participation opportunities for children with neurodisabilities.
That's all your favourite words in there. There's a lot of good words there.
It's like this paper has been created especially for me to digest. I love to hear that.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, with a great title like that, Caitlyn, how about you go through with us why this work is important? Why did you do this?
Yeah, I think it came back down to working clinically and hearing from families time and time again how accessing playgrounds in the community wasn't so easy for them and their child.
Yeah.
A lot of playgrounds that they went out to in Perth and surrounds tended not to be accessible as they arrived, and they had no tool to use to easily find playgrounds that would suit their child's needs. So hearing that, we recognised that need, that there was something that we could work with there.
Yeah, it's a real gap that you have found in information for families, I think, because, we're becoming better at identifying and putting out their information, I suppose, around more structured activities for children with neurodisabilities.
Yes.
There's apps out there like Due and things like that that talk about more structured things, but, play is a child's work and finding opportunities for children to play and creating those incidental moments of play is probably even more important than the structured stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think playgrounds are that outlet, that it's not only physical development, but there's so much more to it.
Yes.
Along the social, like you think kids are out there together playing, they're building social skills as they problem solve to get from one end to the other, or use different equipment, building cognitive. So.
Yeah. And you think about all the times, it doesn't take long to talk to a parent about how they spend their day or their week, and it usually does involve bringing their kids to a playground. The weather permits, you're out there. One, it's getting them out of the house.
Parenting at home is hard, as you can tell by how my brain just has worked then.
But being outdoors, right, and knowing that it's safe, knowing that your child can play and meet other people and all those kinds of things. It's so incredibly important. But yet for kids with neurodisabilities, it's infinitely harder. Like, what are some of the barriers there?
I think a main one that comes to mind, and it's the first one I sort of look for, it's an obvious one when you arrive at a playground, is the mobility of the floor surfacing. The structure of the floor surfacing.
Yeah.
So
mulch, gravel.
How that affects their mobility.
So even if we take it back to the car park, when parents pull up at the car park, the first thing you need, if a child uses a walker or a wheelchair, for example, to get into the playground, they need a clear pathway to get from car park to the playground. And then not only that, but once they get to the playground, what if it's just sand surfacing? It means it's a much more difficult time for that child to access any of the play equipment, whether it's accessible for them or not. So thinking about adding in rubber surfacing or just pathways within the playground itself. Things that we look forward for.
There's all these different layers of accessibility, right? There's, getting to the playground, getting to the equipment, being able to, you haven't even played before you've even had a go at anything, on the playground, so to speak.
There are more things as you say, all those layers, but the actual equipment themselves, like children who need to be on a ground level or platform level to access the equipment, if it's not just gross motor play, we need to consider all those things like having interactive games on the walls of playgrounds or music and sensory play on the ground level so children can reach it if they're in a wheelchair. Yeah. Thinking about things like that.
Yeah.
There's playgrounds that exist out there that are actually being made for that reason now. So that's really cool. And I guess that's why you've done this. So why the app?
I think the app, it all comes back to the convenience of accessing information.
Yeah.
And as I said, parents wanted that central information source to find playgrounds that would suit their child's needs. So mobile apps are a great way to access information, as we all know.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we have a software engineer on the team at Healthy Strides.
Yeah.
And he is actually was able and willing to build an app from scratch.
Yeah.
So we knew we had that resource.
Yes.
Which was a great step into it.
Yeah.
And then we thought, how can we meet this need for the families with the app? So that's how the app came alive, the Participate app.
Right.
And from there, it was all about talking with those families and starting a co-design process.
Yes.
Lovely
and
word.
One of the many words in this title that's got me excited is co-design. Can you talk to us and the listeners a little bit more about what that involved?
So the co-design, what co-design actually means, if I draw it back, is about bringing together integral stakeholders who are involved in a process, in particular the consumers, so in our case caregivers, to hear about their recommendations and thoughts and experience, and put forward their thoughts on what they needed or wanted, and then working together with our other stakeholders who were clinicians in paediatric rehab and the software engineer. So
Great.
work together.
Yeah. And I guess that's so important. Like I think back to a friend of mine that used to work with me, and he had a friend, so a friend of a friend, where his job was to go through apps and kill them because there were so many apps come to life, because people always think that an app is a great solution.
Yes.
But then there's this massive graveyard of them. And so he would have to go through just to clear space and actually just delete apps that weren't used.
Yeah.
And I look at my own phone and I go,
Yes.
which apps do I need to use anymore? When you need more space, you go through and you start deleting them. But that's I guess the co-design part is so important for that. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, it really speaks to that
this
sustainability piece, right?
Yeah.
So I think the number is around 80% or so mobile apps are abandoned after a single use by a user. So if they download it, they might use it once and then get rid of it.
Yeah.
And that, from the literature, has reported that it's because it doesn't meet the user's need.
Wow.
So they get rid of it, which makes sense. I've done it before with different apps. So I think knowing that co-design, from reading all about it and hearing previous stories, knowing that was the way to make it meet the consumer's need, just made sense to co-design mobile app.
So practically speaking, what did that look like? How did you kind of go through the co-design checklist?
For us, once we'd sort of recognised that need, it was about bringing together the stakeholders that we knew would be relevant for the process. And of course, consumers, we knew straight away that would be caregivers of children with neurodisabilities. And they were actually caregivers from the Healthy Strides Foundation, where we'd heard the original need. Our software engineer was on site and we recruited them through that way. And clinicians were also from Healthy Strides. And we sat down, clinicians and caregiver, I think it was April in 2022, to go through some interviews one-on-one and really hear a lot more about playground participation and what it meant and what the caregivers felt like they needed. And from there, the software engineer started to map out a design for the app based on these findings. And then clinicians and software engineer put together a rating scale that we would be able to use for rating playgrounds based on their accessibility.
Yes.
And that all came from the interview findings.
I love a good rating scale.
We love a rating scale.
Don't we?
Yeah.
All right, so tell us about the rating scale.
Yeah.
What's in it?
The rating scale is made up of 5 features, and these features were what the caregivers flagged to be the 5 most important things to know about before attending a playground.
Yeah.
So they were park mobility, park safety, accessible play, disability bathrooms, and accessible parking.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So you can think about each one of those and, you know, why it would mean so much to know about.
Yes.
So we then created that checklist of what would make up each criteria for each feature.
Yes.
And so when we rated playgrounds and did visits, we'd have to tick off a checklist, and if a playground met the criteria for each feature, it would receive a star for that feature. And then if all 5 got it, it would be deemed as a 5-star, high accessible playground.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And then was there any kind of further process where you came back to your stakeholders and showed them the app and got feedback on
That's a great
from there?
question. Yeah. We did in the initial phases go back to the clinicians and those caregivers to touch base on what the design looked like with a bit of a, before the app was officially released, but with a bit of a dummy of what it looked like and how user-friendly it was and received feedback on all of that. So there was that stage, and that is part of the co-design process. Process looking back. Yeah.
So what's in the app now? Like what's included in it?
Yeah. So for now, it's data all from and playgrounds all around Perth, WA.
Yep.
So when the user opens the app, it'll take them to a home page and they have the opportunity to search for playgrounds based on different categories or the features, different features.
Yep.
For example, the first one that comes up is searching by category. So you can do this by filtering if you would like a playground that has a disability bathroom and park mobility.
Right. So you can choose what's the most important to you at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So if you're like, okay, we definitely need those 2 things.
Yes.
Where are all the playgrounds around me that have those 2 things?
Yep.
So that's one option. There is also the ability to search by highest accessibility rating. So if you're like, I'm willing to travel wherever it is in Perth to get to the one with the highest accessibility
I want
rating.
the 5-star park.
That's right.
I can do that. So you know where it is.
Cool
And
as well.
you can even look at the whole, we can do it by nearest location if you just want to find a convenient one that's accessible, you know, more accessible, that's close to you. Or you can look at all of the playgrounds and a list for you. Or there's an interactive map.
Yep. And how many playgrounds are on there now?
Close to 200 now.
That's cool.
Wow. And how many playgrounds have you visited to rate?
Me individually, maybe 50% of those.
Yeah, wow. That's still a lot. Yeah.
We've got our team that's all involved in
Of
it.
course.
So,
Yeah.
But I love that because when you think about, you know, conversations I know I've had with families where they turn up to a place and they realize none of it's accessible. It's a huge disappointment. They go home, or you want to have a party and you want to plan to have your child's friend who you know is in a walker or in a wheelchair to come and join the party. Like you can use this app too and like really sensibly pick a place that is going to be beautiful for everyone from an experience perspective.
And trust that all the information there is up to date and accurate. And, you know, like I think about sometimes Google Street View and things like that, you know, it's the house has had a big renovation and it's, you know, you can, this app has everything that, up to date information, which is so helpful.
I know, it's so good. So I guess from here, just to wrap up about the app is, you know, what are the further steps from there? Is it going to be an app that's going to continue to be available in Perth? What does that look like?
We certainly hope to continue to support the app and keep providing resources and time to contribute and make it bigger so more families and kids can access it. That serves as one of our challenges that we did experience with the co-design process is having the available time for it. But we'll continue to support it. And as for where it leads to in the future, it's still in talks at the moment. Certainly striving to build it up. And the whole purpose of this abstract and presentation was to explain how we did it and the importance of co-design. So if anyone around Australia or wherever wants to do a similar thing specific to a niche area or to their location.
Yeah.
And we'd be very happy to support and discuss.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. And for everyone who is now desperate to look at the app and see it and experience it for themselves, where can they find it?
The Participate app is a free tool. I'll start with that one. And it's available on the App Store and the Google Play Store, depending if you're Apple or Android.
So if they just search for Participate?
So Participate app.
Yeah,
Participate app.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've got a QR code here at the booth, so come down to Research Works if you want to as well. I've got a QR code here that you can scan and get to it quickly.
Yeah.
Love a good QR code.
Love a good QR code.
I feel like it's a lot more understandable now. Many years ago, I had no idea what it was.
Well, Caitlyn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We loved talking to you about this app, and I'm
Yes.
sure everyone who's listening will love to see it and experience it for themselves.
Yeah, take a look.
Enjoy your conference.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you all again really soon. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.